Welcome to the Marc Denney Podcast, an audio-only experience hosted by me, Marc Denney. I love movies, TV, and all things entertainment. If you found this podcast, awesome. Tell me your secret. This podcast comes out every Friday and is featured on the Movie Reference feed, both on Spotify, Apple, and other platforms. The Movie Reference is watchable on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to that. Today is all about the dreamers. To all the fools that dream. Episode 3 on February 3rd, 2023. I mean, so many threes, it's like it's meant to be. Fun fact, my favorite number is 3. Anywho, enough of that. This is going to be a more somber type of episode. You know, it may not be your thing, but I couldn't shake it. You know, this idea of just like giving it up to the dreamers. Shout out to the dreamers. I promise you we'll get to all the DC conversation and all that stuff probably next week. But I don't know. I felt so compelled. And maybe I need this more for myself than you, or maybe it does inspire you. At a risk of sounding like one of those real motivation things that goes out. I hope that doesn't happen, but I don't know. So, listen, I think I'm a dreamer. I mean, goodness gracious, if I got paid to dream, that would be amazing. Because I can't tell you how many times a day I come up with an idea or I'm sharing an idea with Lisette. And I'm just constantly thinking, whether it's music, movies, podcasts, whatever it may be. I'm always there. I'm always somewhere in that atmosphere, and maybe it's discipline. It probably is a lot of discipline, because I think a lot of the times I get discouraged when it comes to this, because creativity and being a dreamer, there's so much content, there's so many other people, and I get in my head about that stuff, and I don't know if that's the same for you guys, or if you're in that same situation where you kind of overthink it, and you go, well, someone. I can't tell you how many times I told my mom a movie idea, and she'd be like, "Oh, I've seen that movie before," and I'm like, "Well, I hadn't." Like, it sounded new to me, and it kind of becomes, when you're somebody that's trying to be, well, I mean, at any rate, most people are trying to be original. Not saying that I'm not some artsy fartsy original guy, but you do try to be original. You try to have your own voice, and you try to, hey, I have this idea, and I think it'll be great as a film, as a song, or as a podcast or whatever. And then you realize you're not the only one. Someone else felt the same way, and it's either being done or it's been done. And I don't know. I think when you explore too much, like I do, I think that's when you get discouraged. But if you're focused on the thing that you're making, I don't know, maybe there's a chance that you kind of push through and it actually becomes something incredible. You never know. But I don't know, man. I've done so many things and tried so many things that I don't know what this calling is. I know there's a calling. I know there's something here. I know for I don't know what it is. Ever since I was a kid, it's been calling me. Something in being creative, something about just making things that it's always called to me. Every time we did those little quizzes that they make you, those personality quizzes, I always leaned towards creativity. Anytime that I had fun in school was because I was being creative. And being in an office gig is not exactly, that's never been what I wanted to do with my life. Being a teacher was a fun experiment. I mean, technically, with being a teacher, you can be creative every single day, especially with the young ones. But the real life of teaching really infects For people who are not built for being a teacher, the real life of being a teacher affects the creativity of things. But there are people who break through, who are all about teaching and can be creative and all that stuff. But not saying I didn't try. I'm just saying. But I've always wanted to write. I always wanted to direct. I always wanted to act. I always wanted to sing or be a writer. And I've made hip hop music. I know it's funny to laugh at, but I wrote a lot of songs. I still have a shoebox full of songs that I wrote as a kid. And I would write every other weekend when I go to my mom's, because for some reason I didn't want my dad to catch me writing rhymes. That sounds so weird and dorky. And especially when he ended up being the first person to buy me a mic. When I got the mic, I started making songs, and they weren't very good. No, they're terrible. Oh my gosh. But even back then, I was somebody who was creative, trying to think of ways to rhyme words, trying to think of different songs that I hadn't heard. But I would also be self-sabotage. And I think that's probably one of my biggest things when it comes to creativity, is I self-sabotage fairly quickly. If I'm feeling down about something, it could all go away in a blink of an eye. And with music, I was like that. I would get to a point where maybe I have a new idea or new album idea. Who needs all this old stuff? Delete. And I would work on the new material. Wait, I have a different idea. I don't need all this. And delete again and start from scratch. And then I would be like, oh, dang, what was that one song I was working on? I could have made it better. It's gone. The files are gone. I do have like burnt CDs of my music that for me, I guess, is it in retrospect, it's proud. Like, I'm proud that I made the CD. I'm proud that I put a concept together, but I'm not proud enough to share it. And my wife still makes fun of me because I did play her a couple songs, but I have a song on there that is really embarrassing, of using accents and trying to do my best Eminem relapse error. And anyways, she laughs at that all the time. She thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. But that's as far as it goes. Like, I'm not willing to share it with anybody else. Like, I've shared it with others before thinking, oh man, it doesn't matter. The dream finally kind of dissipated. And every once in a while, I'll get this feeling that I want to write a song. For example, I wrote a song dedicated to my wife that we danced to on our wedding day, but I didn't sing it. My sisters sang it. My stepsister sang it to us. And so it ended up being beautiful, right? I was like, dang, I write pretty good songs. Maybe I should write more. But that bug comes and goes. It just depends on how I feel. And then sometimes I have an idea that for movies, for example, I have a lot of ideas for movies. I've always loved movies ever since I was a kid to this day. I think I have a new perspective today than I did, the last 10 years. And I bring that up because when I was a kid, I was always like a performer. I always loved making people laugh, and not to say that I wanted to be a comedian. There was just something about whenever I was around family, turning up the volume, right? Turning up the level of personality that I really enjoyed, and it seemed like my family enjoyed, I hope. And I still do that to this day. Like, for some reason, there's a different part of me that comes out when I'm around certain people that I'm comfortable with. And there was only one person that I remember that would always tell me, you should go for it. You should go for local theater. You should, and it was my Uncle Robert. I guess he's my second uncle, is technically my dad's uncle. How does that work? I don't know. But he would always say, you should go for it. You should go for it. And I was like, yeah, I would always be shy about it. But I never went through with it. And then when I went to college, I did an acting class, and I had the most incredible time in that class. I had so much fun. I got to turn my brain off and just like because we would always do these exercises at the beginning of the class, and it just was like, silly noises, whatever it was. We always got to do these silly noises or these exercises that made us feel comfortable around each other, and it was like the best class ever. I love that class. And we had this, obviously, with that class, you have to do a final performance. And I had to do this final performance. You have to do it with a partner. And we were playing brothers. And the whole time, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with the character. And this is not some deep actor talk, okay? But the day of, though, it was something different, right? With all the rehearsals and all the practicing and making sure I had my lines, when I was on stage, I had a whole different feeling. Like I can't explain it. It was like an out of body experience. Before I knew it, it was over. And I have to grab him, right? Like there's a part, but I never got it right because I never wanted to hurt him. But when we were on stage, I just grabbed him, and I just remember going, "That's it. That's what I was supposed to do." And the biggest part, the best honor of it all, I guess, was at the end. I don't know if she just says this to everybody, but my professor said, you should really consider auditioning for this play we got going. I think it was the next semester. And I printed out the scripts and everything like that. I was getting ready, and I chickened out of the audition. I chickened out. And I think, in a way that makes me kind of go, man, I never got to really see if that was meant to be, even though I'm somebody, I know that I love movies. I just don't know where I'm supposed to fit in it, right? Everyone sees me now. I think now that I'm 33, I feel like everyone's going to laugh at me, and I know they're not, but I feel like with everything that I do, I feel like everyone goes, oh, Mark wrote a song, or Mark filmed a short and he's acting in it, or Mark has a podcast. And I feel like there's a little bit of a laughter after it because it's like, come on, nerd, just stop dreaming. And I can't. I can't. So I regret not going to that audition, obviously. And I don't know. Where do I go from there? How do I see what if that is my path and I didn't follow through with it? What if it's not? I'll never know. At least with hip hop music, my parents were never supporters of it. They said I was terrible, that I would be screaming in the closet. And it's funny, but they definitely were not supporters of that dream, and they killed it pretty quickly with making me decide what I wanted to be when I grow up, which was always the scariest question in the world. They knew I was great with kids and all that stuff, and that's how I ended up on my path of becoming a teacher, was because of that office conversation. We always call it the office because we'd be called to the office for these big talks, which is why I don't like enclosed spaces anymore. This is specifically the reason why I don't want an office gig, is because of how many times I was called into the office to talk about life. Now I know I'm forcing you guys to listen to me talk about life and talk about dreamers, but hey, it is what it is. I guess I learned something. And then fast forward, if you guys know me, I'm sure most of you do who listen to this, I started making my own. Like I started a cooking show with my wife briefly, right? We did 2 episodes, and that was me practicing with the camera skills, practicing being on camera, did some shorts, did some ideas where I was like, oh, here's a 15-second clip of me thinking of trying to do a jumper movie, right? Or a jumper short film that I wanted to make. Or here's, that Lifetime video that I made to the Hans Zimmer's score music. It was a contest, but I poured every ounce of myself into that to I don't know, make something kind of profound, to talk about life in a weird way. And it's, my wife associates that song now. It's called Time, but she calls it Lifetime now every time she hears it, because she affiliates that song with that with what I made. And of course, we got the last short that I did was Trapped with my brother, and I remember after all that was done, I had it was a pretty big chunk of time where I was making stuff and putting it out there and all that. I didn't know what to do next, and that's when the podcasting came about, right? And I don't know exactly what I was doing. I had an idea for the Who and What Movie podcast, and I think I got more concerned with having guests as opposed to making sure my idea stayed intact. And that I think that's what its ultimate downfall ended up being. And then the movie reference came, and man, when Brittany and I started that, we started, we just chugged along, and I didn't even notice because we weren't weekly, and it was the first time I did anything that I didn't really like pay attention to the outside. It wasn't until we hit YouTube that I started paying attention to the outside. Started realizing that we're not alone, right? And I think that gets intimidating, especially when they start popping up on your recommended feeds, and it's other people who are in the same boat as you, who just started out, who have crummy, they're using Zoom or whatever. They're like, there's not professional equipment, and then you compare yourself to the people who have, you get bogged down in that comparison thing. And I don't know, I say all that just because I know there's a lot of people out there who have these dreams, and there's a lot of people who have your idea, and sometimes it gets, I don't know, you get frustrated. I know I get frustrated. That's particularly why sometimes we don't put out an episode. We get frustrated. We're just like, does anyone even watch? You know what I mean? And then you start getting bogged down, not to diss anybody, but the reality of the situation is we're making a podcast hoping to get a growth and build an audience, but we're only making stuff that's good enough for the people who already watch it consistently now, right? Not good enough for them to share or anything like that. And I'm not calling anybody out. It's true. If we had an agent sitting right here in front of us, they would say the same thing. You're making great stuff for your friends and family, but you're not making good enough stuff to put out there in the whole world, like the whole wide world. You know what I mean? No one's interested in this right now. And who knows if they ever will be. But we still chug along because we love it. That's my sister and I, that's our bond. We love talking to each other, so love talking to movies and stuff, and that's why the show still continues, even though sometimes it feels, what's the point, right? Same with this, the Marc Denney Podcast. I created, not to reveal too much of my idea thinking, but I did get down about the movie reference, and I started thinking, what if it's not going to last forever, and what if Brittany wants to leave the show, and what am I going to do? And I need to create something on the side, and that's kind of where that idea led to the Marc Denney Podcast. And then I'm using the movie reference right now, but my hope is that it does expand and grow, and it becomes its own thing on its own feed. And that kind of, even if the movie reference continues, I at least either have two shows that I'm working on at the same time, or I'm just working on the Marc Denney Podcast. I don't know. I'm just sharing because I'm a dreamer, man. I'm always dreaming of the positives. I'm always dreaming of the negatives. And, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. I mean, I don't know, and Brittany and I, we've had a show previously, the Brittany and Mark show, that only did like 3 episodes. This is when YouTube was not new, but fairly new. It knew enough for us to be like, I don't know. I don't remember what happened, why we stopped doing the show. But I mean, heck, we joke about it all the time. But yeah, we probably would be in a different space right now had we continued that particular show, because that show was whatever came to mind. There was no censorship on that one. And then some of you might know, some of you might remember, I used to do a show on YouTube called Mark in the Movies that got destroyed because of self-sabotage again. That one was in my 20s, and I was going through a lot and internally, and I think I don't know. I just kept pressing that self-destruct button, but I would like be consistent for like 3 weeks, and then I would like be depressed, and then like 3 to 4 weeks later, I would put out a new episode, and like I was just not consistent. I was just always down about it, and that lasted 2 years before I finally said, "Okay, I'm deleting this, deleting this. I'm deleting all the videos. I don't want to think about it ever again." But I say all that, and you hear all the things that I've actually put out. I am proud of it. I'm happy that I tried to do all those things, but I still feel like I'm still searching for what is that thing? What's calling me? What do you want, universe? Why do I, stare at my computer screen when I'm working and I just know there's something beyond the wall. There's something behind the wall that I can't see it. Maybe the Marc Denney podcast will be that thing. Right now it's just something fun, right? But maybe one day it's going to be like, "Oh, snap. That's what it was leading to this whole time." Or maybe it's going to be one of those realization things where I finally go, "You know what? I'm going to do some local theater where I'm at, and I'm going to see where it goes." I don't know. I feel like that sometimes. I feel like, man, if I could find a local thing, obviously it's harder now being a dad, but maybe there's a day plays or something, when my son goes to school and I can I can go to a workshop or something during the day. I don't know, man. I think what it boils down to is discipline. That's really the big thing. As long as you have discipline, you could probably do anything. You'll probably pull through whatever you're thinking. If you think that you have a business idea, a business strategy, go for it. If you think that you're going to be a comedian, or you're going to be an actress, or you're going to an actor, you're going to be a director, whatever, go for it. Do it. But I also don't be like me. Don't get scared. Cuz I do get scared. I do get bogged down by the negativity of thinking of I think too far ahead. It's not enough for me to want to be in a movie or want to be a part of making a movie. It's, oh, but what if I end up working with somebody that is questionable? Why am I thinking about that? Who cares? Go make a movie. What if I become too famous and people start prying into my life? I don't really like that part of it. Why are you thinking about that? You haven't even made it, bro. But that's what happens. I overthink. I think too far ahead. And you gotta turn that brain off. I can't tell you, other than finding out that there's a lot of people who are doing what Brittany and I are doing. When I created the Marc Denney podcast, and obviously the end goal is to have its own feed and have its own growth and be this audio only thing that I get to do every week, I decided to look through the podcast, just through Spotify, just to look at all the podcasts, and there's so many podcasts. And it's like, what makes my voice unique? Because, oh my gosh, look at all these people who have the same ideas as I do. And I had this thing once when I was trying to be like super confident when I started my YouTube channel, Mark in the Movies. I was like, I don't know if Joe Schmo from 1,000 miles away is going to have the same idea as me. I just got to try. But back then, I was less scared than I am now. I think now that I've gotten older, I feel like everything that I come up with, every idea I come up with, there is something stronger holding me back. And it's like, well, I had this idea when I was in my 20s, and I don't feel like it was that strong of a hold. Like I felt like it was nothing could hold me back. Whatever. Yeah, I have this idea that maybe something could hold me back, but I feel like now that idea is stronger than ever. I think because I've just stuck with it too long. I think about it too much, and it gets to the point where it's like, what's the point in trying, man? You're going to fail. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, I just, shut up, brain. Let me do what I love. And it's hard to, when you are someone creative or you're someone that's a dreamer. I mean, what's the thing that's holding you back? Probably money, right? That's what it is. That's what's holding you back, and you got to take the lumps to get there, man. Nothing is an overnight success. No podcast, no song, no movie. It's not. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I say that. I tell you guys this. I say this to myself, but I'm still like, you know, it's scary, man. It's scary, especially when now I am a dad. I'm a happily married dad. Happily married man who is a dad. I have to worry about my family, but at the same time, I'm still dreaming. But I don't know what it is, man. What's the calling? What's going on? And I think that's why I'm such a big supporter of people who dream, man. Maybe I'm supposed to be a cheerleader. I don't know, but I am. Like, I hope people who hear this, they think you know who you are. I am a champion for people who dream. You have an idea, go for it, man. Do it. Make it happen. And then you make it happen, or you don't. I don't know, or I check in on you. I hope people. I don't know. I'm just fascinated with dreamers, and I don't think I'll ever stop. I honestly don't think. I can't tell you how many times I've thought of book ideas. I'm somebody who can't. I don't even have the discipline to finish reading a book, and I want to write a book. Come on, that's not going to happen. And I have all these movie ideas, and I have all these. Like, I have the meat to the movies, but I don't have the vegetables or the potatoes to connect them. And so then I go, what's the point of writing it if I don't know what's going to make this situation happen, make this scene happen? I have a cool idea, but I don't know how to connect it. Or I told Brittany that I wanted to make these like trailer reels. I'm just going to tell you because I'm probably not going to do it, but I wanted to do these trailer reels where we were starring in them, actually performing, but making them trailer style and putting them out there. And I don't know where to go. I don't know where to begin. I get so intimidated and bogged down about the little stuff. I recently the Fablemans and Senior, what's it called? Lights and Magic documentary. All those things I've been watching, and it's been like refueling my love for films again. So if you haven't seen any of those, you need to watch them, because they're odes to filmmaking. But I'm like, these guys, especially Senior and Fableman's. Fableman's about Steven Spielberg, and Senior's about Robert Downey, the senior, right? Robert Downey Senior. They just pick up a camera and shoot. Why do I don't have to make something. I could just pick up my camera and film like I used to. And I don't know, man. I don't know. This has been a deep conversation about me, I guess. I don't know. I don't know, man. I just don't be negative. Be positive. Have a good 2023, right? It just started. Go make something happen. If you have a dream, go make it happen. If you are on your dream and you feel like I maybe want to stop or quit, don't. Don't. Unless you really don't want to do it anymore. I understand that. Sometimes I don't make hip hop music anymore, and I don't have a desire to do so. But I'm just saying, there's certain things that you just know. And when you know, right? Cuando lo sabes, lo sabes. It's the most important thing my wife ever taught me. When you know, you know. So, with that being said, that's episode 3 right there. Thank you guys for listening to me banter, rant, or hopefully made something coherent, and hopefully inspires you, or maybe when I play it back, it'll inspire me and it'll keep me on my toes. Whew. But anyways, I'm Marc Denney. This is the Marc Denney Podcast. And I promise you, next week we'll be talking about movies. Shout out to the dreamers. Oh, one last thing. One quote I want to read to you. It's from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Every rejection, Every disappointment has led you here to this moment. Till next week.